Mr. Hilligoss, dude, I'm super stoked to have you on the show, man. So I was just talking to you a little bit about the Multifamily Investor Nation. You're going to be a presenter up here. Your background is technology-based companies and startups, and you have about a 3,500 unit portfolio. Welcome to the show, man. I'm super stoked to have you here.
Ruben, thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here. Excited to talk about some real estate with you.
Awesome, man. Okay, so why don't we start with telling a little bit about your background. So you were in the technology business. Congratulations. This is the number one thing that I'm so excited about having you on the show is that you just recently retired after 13 years in corporate America or in some kind of business that had nothing to do with you doing your own business. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Thank you for that, Ruben. Yeah, it's been a surreal past 5 weeks or so, so I put in the time finally after building a side hustle for the past 3.5 years. And so very fun and, to just focus fully on building Madison Investing, which is our own real estate company.
And you posted about it and got like 1,500 likes or some ridiculous number on LinkedIn. Is that right?
I've never had what people call viral posts. But yeah, I guess that qualifies. It was like 13,000 views, and I was sitting there just going, I was just giving the update, speaking my truth, and apparently that resonates with people. But of course, I am still running my own business as an entrepreneur. But for me, it feels like joy. I literally just spent the last 2 hours prepping my boys to drop them off at school, taking them each to their own schools, and I never would have done that prior. So it's a blast.
That's amazing. So what was your conversation with your boss? Did they know that you were going to be leaving, or did you surprise them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ruben. I did tell them, even I would say a month or two prior, I'm here for the long haul, guys. And what that wasn't inaccurate. What changed was going into the fourth quarter at any company, and particularly early stage tech companies. That's the time when they make plans for the following year. That's when you're asking these big questions about what are the assumptions we're going to go take on for the next year? How much can we grow? And I didn't want to get wrapped up in that annual planning cycle. I would have had to leave Madison Investing, my business, on the side even further to dive further back in. So I went back in there after I told the bosses, and I was like, I can't give you guys all of myself. And if my heart isn't in this, I don't think you're going to want it. So they were very understanding, but it was still, it was pretty bittersweet because I'm not one of those people that hates my day job, before, Ruben. And I think that's a weird thing to say sometimes in the real estate investing community. There's a narrative out there for all the right reasons. Each person's journey is unique, but my journey has been one where I've largely enjoyed my technology career, leading and mentoring other people and growing organizations. So for me to actually say goodbye to it was a pretty big deal. And frankly, on a financial side, I was making extremely strong income. And so it was like a deliberate choice to walk away from golden handcuffs. I had to forego a big bonus that was due later, but it was so worth it and continues to be so worth it. When you wake up with a smile because you're excited about the work, the sky's the limit on what you can do. So it's been a blast.
Absolutely, man. Congratulations again. So you have 3,500 units that you have actively invested. And one of the things that cracked me up about you is I asked how many deals you had passively invested in, and you didn't know.
So, I know. Well, I was telling Ruben earlier that I'm the kind of guy who focuses extremely deep in a structured framework way when I'm analyzing each deal. And then once I'm done with it, I don't need to allocate that brain space to it anymore. So what I need to do is be able to efficiently go on to the next and analyze it. If I have to go and rehash the analytics and the data behind it, then I can do that. But we've invested passively in 10 deals, and so it was funny. The other day, I was talking to a very established deal sponsor, and they asked me how many residential properties and where are your residential properties in your portfolio that you built early on. Because we have some turnkeys and we have like a duplex and stuff that we don't talk about very much, but he was interested in that. And I was like, yeah, where are they again? Because my better half and business partner, Jennifer Morimoto, who runs Madison Investing with me, she is also the manager of that residential portfolio. So I don't really think about it that much. I mean, I'm sure that if it had 100% vacancy all of a sudden for some terrible reason, I would care about it a lot more. But right now it's just, it's doing what it should be doing. It's creating mailbox money, not as much as multifamily tends to, but it is doing what it needs to do.
Okay, so break down the 3,500 units. How did you start investing during doing multifamily syndication, and how did you build that portfolio? How long has it taken you to do that?
Yeah, and so on the 3,500, those are all active transactions for us as well. So I didn't even include our passive ones in there. So we actually, we got started a few years ago, and I'm a huge believer in coaching. And I actually went out and I first just had to translate my chops in terms of analytics and deal analyzing from residential, which I had built really, really strong competency around from experience, but also in my prior company. My prior company was like a lender for fix and flips. So I got a really good boot camp on how to analyze those types of deals. And once I translated that over to multifamily, as you got to know the numbers and you got to know how to underwrite. And so if you put together a framework that works for you first, then you're on a strong foundation. So that was my first focus, was find a coaching program that really gave me a strong foundation on underwriting. So I did that. Then I sought out a coach that could also be a partner, basically approach it with like a mentor who could also let me actually get into a deal with them. And so then we started to become a co-sponsor, and we help on a variety of things, and one of which is capital raising. And so that was amazing because we didn't necessarily have to go and do a substantial portion of contribution. We could be assisting someone else at first, right? And so that's just, I can't understand, or I can't overstate the value of partnering with someone like that and asking for, humbling yourself and saying, there's things I do really well. How can I be helpful for you?
Mm-hmm.
And so, approaching them like that was critical. And as we went up, we started partnering on deals. And as we got successful, we had other people approach us to partner on deals. And that's a wonderful feeling when people start saying, hey, would you work with us? And not vice versa. And so now, our capabilities have increased significantly. And so we are often running with the right infrastructure to be able to get our brand message out there, and also a web presence, like a website and a process and an infrastructure technically that is set up well to be able to interact with new potential investors, potential operators that reach out to us to partner. And now I'm just rambling at you, so I'll stop.
No, so what is the criteria for somebody that you impose when you are considering being a CoGP for them?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really evolved over time. We hear so much about the operator, the market, and the deal to analyze a good opportunity. But just within the operator, if I were to pick one of those three that is most heavily weighted in terms of analyzing the risk and the upside on an opportunity, it has to be the who, and so analyzing the operator, I put together a kind of 5-bucket criteria, and that involves things like the team, the track record, comms or communication. And within each of those, without getting too nerdy, there are very specific questions that I have under each of those buckets. But I'll give you at least a taste of those, Ruben, which is, the first one is, okay, track record, but what does that actually mean? What that means is they've closed a deal like the one that they want to talk about with me, and they've done it at least with a similar playbook before, in a similar market before, and on the same asset type before. This can't be like a true first go skin your knees thing. In fact, I would like to see a couple of those. That'd be great. Second one, and I would say this one is very telling about how they answer this one. I just want to hear a story. When did that person when did they build their failure response? And it sounds kind of weird, but like failure response to me means, not every person out there has been through a capital call. I'm thankful to say I haven't either personally. But if you have not been an entrepreneur, or even if you haven't, if you've been in like the corporate world, you've had some experience that challenged you to your core. It felt like a figurative kick in the teeth, and it was a failure, right? Like a pretty significant failure. And I want to know how that sponsor was able to navigate that and bounce back from that. Because if they haven't gone through that before, and they're using either my capital, because we do invest in our own deals alongside, even when we're co-sponsoring, we are also LPs in our own deals. If they're using my capital and the capital of people that I trust, I don't want them sitting there on the button going like, okay, do I put my own capital in if we have an issue on reserves, or do I do a capital call with the LPs? We got to make sure that decisioning under duress is something that they can navigate. So those are the types of things that we go into. There's 70 questions on there. I don't ask every single one of them to the sponsor. That would probably make them run away screaming and make me seem like a total jerk, but which is always quite possible. But it's that kind of stuff which I find is so critical. Last but not least would be communication. It's been really fascinating the last few years, Ruben. I'm sure you can speak to this, but like observing the communication standards for what is considered good on an LP newsletter, or even project updates. If project updates are coming in, they don't have basic stuff like occupancy. If you're invested as an LP, you don't see, how's it going in terms of, occupancy, how's it going in renovations, if it's a value add. Those are basic details. And if you go 3 to 6 months without any updates, that's not even hitting a baseline for modern standards of communication. That it's not too hard to put together a MailChimp. And so, anyways, those would be some of the big buckets that I look for when talking to potential partners and sponsor, in addition to just us mutually finding it to be enjoyable to interact with each other, because we're going to be talking to each other for quite a while. It's important too.
Yeah. Tell me about the specific business model that you're using right now. How do you choose the apartment complexes? How big do they need to be? In what markets? How long do you stay in the deal for?
Yeah, so we're in the deal all the way through, all the way through the whole period, because we're partnering on a handful of different things. Whether that be kind of on the front, or on underwriting and due diligence, and capital raising, and then also just investor relations and some of the asset management stuff. So it's all the way through the deal. And in terms of the property types that we're focusing on, they tend to be pretty big. They tend to be multifamily. We've done a couple of self-storage deals. I'm open-minded to mobile home parks, and frankly, I'm more keen on single asset plays, or maybe a small portfolio, as opposed to funds. There's nothing wrong with a fund by any means. There's some really great funds out there that I've invested in as well. However, there's just a couple of things about a single asset that I prefer, like the transparency, the fact you can underwrite them so thoroughly, all that wonderful stuff. So we tend to focus on 150 units plus, B class. I would say the markets we've been focusing on have been Texas, specifically in certain parts, submarkets of DFW. And we've also been doing North Carolina, South Carolina more recently. A little bit of Florida here and there. Really selective with the markets in Florida, because it can be a little too risky for our criteria, depending on the market. So those have been it. We have done. I would love plugging the mobile home park thing, because I would love to be able to connect with some more folks that are out there doing single asset plays on the mobile home park front, because I just think it's a great asset class.
And then on the lending, how long do you what kind of lending products do you use on your multifamily syndication? Is it Fannie Freddie upfront, 5 to 7 year term? Are you looking at 10-year? You purchase these quicker with bridge financing? Tell me about the lending products that you use.
Yeah, I would just say it takes a variety of tools depending on the project and the market. And so when working with some of our lead sponsors, we've done a couple of bridge loans recently, and private loans, just because the property has a really huge value add opportunity, and it's not necessarily distressed, but we need to be able to do that bridge before you can get Fannie Freddie debt. So you've got, usually I would like to see longer. I would like to go in stabilized, and I would like to have long-term debt, maybe like even 7, 10 year for these 5-year holds. But I would say a lot of times more recently, you're seeing some good interest only. But you do have a couple of bridge loans that we've been using more recently, just because the value add is such a big opportunity. We don't want to miss out on that, and we got to stabilize it a little bit more before we get the Fannie Freddie stuff. And
then your first deal, tell me about it. I want to go back. When was it? How big was it? What did you do to participate in the deal? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man. And I assume we're talking commercial because the residential one was not quite as exciting.
Yeah. Multifamily syndication all the way, bro.
Okay. I was like, you want to hear about a duplex? So yeah, on the multifamily syndication side, my first deal was in Texas, because we've done so many deals in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that particular deal was actually the first and only C class that I have worked on in multifamily. And I'm so thankful that we worked on that because it is cash flowing very well. But I will say a big learning that I got from that, because it was over 200 units and I was doing that coaching relationship with a guy who was letting me co-pilot with him on a deal. He brought me into it and I was helping with things such as capital raising, such as the underwriting, such as just the due diligence, all that good stuff. And when I've gone back to visit this property since, but when I was out there originally, I was sitting there going, man, this is kind of this neighborhood reminds me of the neighborhoods where we have our first duplex in residential, which is not necessarily a compliment. It's a place where and you probably know this, Ruben, like you have that moment where you sit there and you ask, like, would I be happy having my family live in this neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, since then, I think I've learned from that experience, like that is actually now a part of my criteria and a part of our criteria, because you have so many choices out there. And if the economics look really good, you have to ask yourself, have you comfortable going back? So since then, going back, I'm happy to say the neighborhood's actually much better than I thought that it was at first glance. And the property's doing great. And like it's exceeding its expectations. And it was picked off a few years ago. So, on a 5-year-old deal, like that's a beautiful thing to see. So we go B class and above now. And I think that first deal was a good learning example as to why it's important to be selective about your asset class quality.
What year was that deal?
I think that was back in 2017.
Okay, so since 2017, you've done 3,500 units?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. All right, so tell us about the raising capital aspect. What does the mindset need to be for raising capital? Do you approach it that way, or do you say, hey, it's not raising capital, it's providing an opportunity? Tell us about some of your skills behind that and how you provide that for other companies or other sponsors.
Man, it is such an interesting reset for me, Ruben. And I'm going to take it this direction where, think of it like this. Like I'm coming off the heels from building out sales and operations groups and processes for some of the fastest growing technology companies in the world. And the difference over there is that you're still talking about a funnel, right? Like you're talking about, this is more of a marketing sales lens, but you talk about this thing called the funnel. I'll use my hand art here, where you have the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel. The very nerdy language to put around that from that software sales world is the tofu, mofu, bofu, if you want to make it sound funny. So that it has that in common, is you're always talking about trying to bring people in with educational materials, with content, with stuff that you're putting out there. Same thing goes with multifamily. There's a lot of people out there that need the education. They have interests, or they would just want to learn more. They're at that highest level, the top of the funnel. They might be out there searching on Google. They might be out there looking for events locally where they can go and learn more about this stuff. But the point is, they don't really know where they want to go with this yet, but they know enough to want to explore. Same lesson to what we would do in our marketing teams, frankly, at our tech companies would do. Put together great content that people can find on their own time, and that draws them in, helps educate them so they can get more informed and move down that funnel process amongst the top of the funnel to the middle of the funnel. And so I went in with that approach, and I found out very quickly in real estate, coming off of the sales and operations career in tech, that this is one where you can't apply, and you shouldn't try to apply sales techniques. No one likes to be sold to, particularly not when it comes to investing. And as an investor myself, I think about how much diligence I like to do on my own. I want to go research stuff online. I want to go watch some videos. I want to see how the person that I might be investing with things. And so I want to be able to do all that self-serve stuff. If I'm sitting there talking to a person and they are trying to get me into a deal and I haven't really even gotten to know them yet, and I haven't heard them explain their philosophy or their background, I don't know, what their intention is, well, then I'm probably not going to be ready to make a decision. I'm probably going to feel pressured. And so a lot of those tactics that may have worked when you're converting a lead, AKA a human being, but a buyer of some sort in the software sales world, I had to flip that on its head coming over to real estate and coming over to multifamily, because they may have in common that top layer, that tofu level, where you're sending out, you're trying to generate, create the net, if you want to call it that, versus the spear. And I'm taking that example from a book that's very popular within the software sales world called Predictable Revenue. And they talk about nets, seeds, and spears. It sounds kind of funny. But the spear, when it comes to capital raising, I have not seen or found any success with using that type of approach. I mean, on LinkedIn, I don't know if this happens to you, Ruben, but I bet that it would. So many people are out there operating with a very old school mentality, and they hit up people directly, and they don't even get to know each other. They don't even say hi sometimes, and they just ping you with the terms of the deal. And when I get those pings, I'm like, I wonder who this works on. And I'm not critiquing them as a person. I'm just saying it's a pretty old school approach. And I bet that the conversion rate on that is not super high, because no one likes to be hit up and just treated like a number. And so I'm sure that person and the folks that employ that are frustrated because they have to reach so many people before they can get one.
It's a shot in the dark for a lot of people, I think.
Exactly. And so, the best time to build relationships with people, which is the best thing I could possibly focus on with my time, is just to build relationships with people authentically, is when you don't have a deal. And we've added, I'm not making this up, we've added over 100, and this is big for us, by the way. I know this is not big compared to some of the really established players out there that have massive thought leadership platforms, but it's big for us. We've added over 100 highly engaged new members into our investing club that is Madison Investing right in the last month. And what I mean by it, each one of those means I've had at least an hour-long conversation with that person. I have built a connection with them on a first-name basis. We may have already had multiple conversations, and each of those people, they found us and came to us. And maybe they read a Forbes article, maybe they read or watched some of the content we put on our own blog. Most likely, they probably heard me on a podcast just like this, and they were tuning in to learn more about how all this stuff works. And my story resonated with them apparently, because they reached out and thought, hey, you sound like a real person. A lot of these, they tend to be intimidated by the fact that so much of real estate is new and scary, and terminology they throw them for a loop, and they hear the fact that I just came from a technology career. I was a W-2 employee until a month ago, and that really resonates with them. So I think approachability, consistent process, not treating people like a number, not using the spear, using more of the net with good content. All of these things have been critical. But sorry for going so long-winded on that.
No, it's good. It's good. It's great content. I think everybody loves that story. When somebody can retire from their place of work and then go into multifamily or any other type of real estate investing or business in general, I think when people cross that path, it's a very exciting thing. So it's easy for people to resonate with you on that level.
Totally.
Let's go into, so have you done speaking engagements? I know that you have one coming up with the MFIN Summit coming.
Yeah.
That you've done.
So I've only done a couple, and I did do the last MFIN. And so, the other one was just like a local meetup. But I'm now available. I was kind of putting off all that stuff. I'm an introvert by default, Ruben. Like believe it or not, I'm signing up for conferences for 2020 with a conference strategy, but it's not something I wake up out of bed and go, I can't wait to go to a conference. I mean, I do love, I love talking to people. I love building genuine relationships, but I'm more of a less is more kind of guy when it comes to that stuff. So I'm really excited about the MFIN because I met so many great people who I was very humbled that they actually came and checked out my last talk. So I'm looking forward to it.
And what are you going to be discussing at this next talk?
Yeah, so this one is going to be scaling up from a side hustle. I realized the question that tends to come up all the time right now on a weekly basis is people reach out, and sometimes they're an LP that is already working with us. They've invested on a project. Sometimes there are folks that found me on LinkedIn, and they say, huh, that's interesting. How the heck did you find the time while also doing a demanding day job to go and build this thing that eventually let you quit? And that topic, like here's the first and foremost, I'll say maybe it's controversial. I don't think it is, but I think for some people it might be. Here's a point I haven't heard anyone bring up that was critical for my own strategy. If I were to try to think about what's the first thing I had to do to position myself to quit my day job. And that is this: you have to accept the turning down of promotions. And if you are successful enough in your day job, which is kind of a ticket to the game, you know, I would hope that a person is trying to balance a side hustle. Make sure that you just dial in your day job as best as you possibly can, because you're going to need that brain space to not stress about that, to then context switch to build up a side hustle. And so the topic I'm going to talk about, Ruben, without going in too far into it now, is I was turning down executive level promotions and offers for other companies that probably would have made higher cash compensation. I know for a fact would have made higher cash compensation. You know, in sales leadership, in some cases, that's a big job. We're talking Bay Area money. You know, it's going to be like $50,000 to $100,000, in some cases $200,000 per year cash. But what that also would have required is I would have required dinners at night for networking purposes. That would have required doing that instead of spending time on my business and spending time with my kids and my wife. So the first step in the playbook is, how do you go and position your day job to be a fixture and a strong one that you can keep in a compartment and just know that it's going to keep on humming, because you're going to have to then switch your context all the way over to a different side of the world and think about underwriting and think about thought leadership and think about how do you go and analyze a market and a sub-market. And so that is, when you're building a side hustle business, energy management is a big deal. And if you can't hit the brakes a little bit just to slow things down for your day job, you will not find the energy regularly. And unless you have something special that I don't have, I swear it's always possible. But like, I had to become an early bird that was working at 4 a.m. before our kids and my day job work started to pile up. So I was waking up that early, and I was working on nights and weekends too, just to get this thing off the ground. But it all required saying no to upward climbing of ladders in order to position myself and my wife's situation to be able to do this stuff. And so and there's going to be a bunch of other stuff that we cover in the topic, getting down to really specific tactics as to how you do that. But I like to bring that up just because I don't think a lot of people think about that. What they think is, my job is good. If I get a promotion offered, I should take it. Don't agree. I just fundamentally don't agree with that. So I'm excited to engage on that topic with people.
That's going to be fun. I can't wait to listen to that.
Yeah.
So you have 350 million assets under management with your wife. Is that correct? She's your business partner. Tell me about working with her.
Yeah. Oh man. So it has been the most enriching and wonderful experience, like becoming a business partner with my wife. You know, we went off and we built W2 careers. She's a marketing professional in a very different industry. She's in CPG, or consumer packaged goods, for a company. And that basically means, okay, she's in food industry, I'm in tech, but we both went our very different ways, carving out our own journeys. And when we realized it was time to partner together, it wasn't easy at first. I mean, we got into a weekend or two of business planning, where there were, I mean, this is probably TMI, but there were some tears, I would say, on the first day we attempted this on both ends. It was like, it was getting that real, because we had never done it before. We didn't have a language to do it before. So it was like trying to have a business planning session on your vision statements without an established playbook or language to talk to each other as business professionals, because the only language we had with each other was as husband and wife. And so, how do you do that? You just have to try and have an open mind and open your heart and find the right grit to just get through it. Because on the other side of those discussions, we have found the most amazing, even stronger relationship. And I won't gush about it, but it's just, it's so special. And I think that our ability to give and take, as we both need to make sure our other commitments in life, like of course, taking care of our two young boys. We have a boy that's 2 and a boy that's 5. We're both trying to juggle all those things and also make sure that we're being great parents and compassionate to each other. So it's playing to strength is important too. Roles and responsibilities and carving those out clearly is really helpful in any business and any team. And I think for us, Jennifer has the marketing brain. She is extremely capable and experienced on breaking down a marketing funnel or thinking about what is a target profile for a customer or an investor, and then building the right content that resonates with them. Because there's a lot of content out there that just kind of, and I don't claim that ours is amazing, by the way. This isn't saying we've got the best content. This is just an observation that I see some content that is highly targeted. Clearly the person is writing for an audience that they have in mind. And then there's content where you're kind of just keeping it vanilla. And that's all fine. I think putting more education out there net is a good thing. But she knows very specifically when I get too generic in my content. And she's like, why'd you decide to write that? Or why'd you decide to say that? And I was like, if she asked me that question, that usually means that I can do better. So it's good having that sounding board. Over on my side of the roles and responsibilities, it's more business development operations, partnerships, and then a lot of just investor relations work.
What are you guys doing to get your message out there? What are you doing to become more visible?
Gosh, isn't that the big challenge? I think right now I have been way more open-minded to actually talk, even for our conversation today, Ruben, on other people's platforms, such as your podcast. It's a podcast I was already listening to, and I was like, when you reached out, I was like, this is great. I love talking about this stuff. So I think podcasts are one piece of a big approach. Another one is simply just making ourselves available on the various forms of social media and getting out a consistent message, a consistency to authentic voice. There's a lot. It's hard to find the signal in the noise. There's so much noise in real estate stuff, in real estate business right now. People with killer Instagram and even TikTok profiles, on these newer social media networks, whereas I'm probably just the crotchety old guy who's just still a fan of LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is great, but I think it's consistency and authenticity in the voice and making sure that, to be really specific with an example, video content where it's just me and a whiteboard and then some scribbling.
I've seen that. I've seen some of that.
So you've seen some of that, yeah. Like that stuff, I was sitting there going, this isn't gonna matter to people, but let's just try it, it's me just telling our story and trying to demystify it and be authentic. And lo and behold, I've gotten comments from so many people, including the lurkers, the people that never do a comment or like or anything, and they send you a message and they say, thank you for that. I was really confused as to what the heck you were doing after your technology career. And now I totally understand it. And then I bugged them about not naming their comment.
So. Effort is one of the hardest parts. So I think when I see that content that you are generating, I know how hard it is because I have to produce my own content to just even create something and then have the confidence to post it because everybody, you feel like all these eyes are on you, right?
Right.
So it's like that. From that aspect, it's very mentally challenging to put content out, and then you did anyways. And I think what you share is phenomenal content, but it's scary to do that, right? Because now all of a sudden you're being viewed by all these spaces. But that's what I appreciated about you making an attempt, and in the stuff that you were writing on the boards was educational in the multifamily space. A couple more questions before we sign off. Your wife, is she still working or is she out of her W-2 now?
despite my best attempts to get her to quit. She is not ready to leave her career yet. So she is still working. She actually enjoys it. You know, she really loves what she does. And what we have in a key difference, I would say, that keeps her there too. She likes the camaraderie. You know, people like their coworkers. It's a very family-oriented company. And I got to tell you, you know, this is TMI, but we live in the Bay Area. We live on this little island called Alameda. It's tucked between San Francisco and Oakland. And if anyone knows the Bay Area, the traffic and the commuting here is just crushing. And so they're about to move their office like 7 minutes from our house. And so I was trying to say, like, I know the commute's going to be short, but what if you had no commute? And she's still not biting on that. So we'll see if we can get her to leave. She wants to, but she is also equally pulled back towards it because of the many reasons she loves the work.
Okay, so tell us about your website, how people can find you. Are there any resources that people may be able to tune into or check out to find out about multifamily syndications?
Yeah, and thank you for that. So head to madisoninvesting.com. And if you go to our press page, there's actually a bunch of links to content, whether that's Forbes article content that I wrote. There's also a blog. A question that's come up a lot more recently from folks has just been retirement accounts, like what the heck to do with those retirement accounts. So we created a page for that and a bunch of video content that I put together. But also, if it's not madisoninvesting.com, track me down on LinkedIn. I post as just like we were just talking about with Ruben and I. Follow me on LinkedIn under Spencer Hilligoss, and you'll see me making a fool of myself with a whiteboard and a pen. And hopefully that adds value.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so one last question. I'm very curious, going forward about this co-syndication model, what are some of the benefits of co-syndicating instead of just syndicating yourself? Why do you do that? Is that what you plan on doing going into the future?
Oof, that's a really good question. There was a mentor of mine about 3.5 years ago who said to me, I told them I was going into a coaching program to be a lead sponsor, to be the GP lead. And I had yet to pull the trigger. I was really close to spending a 5-digit number on that program. And he told me, you got to take stock of your geography. And he's like, you're in a money state. You're not in a deal state. And I was like, well, that's a gross oversimplification. And he was kind of, at the time, it felt like a punch to the gut. It felt like he was kind of crushing my dreams. It was the best advice I could have gotten. And the reason I believe that is because I would love for us to work on exclusively our deals at some point in the future when the timing is right, when our boys are not so young. I can sleep a little bit more. I can get on planes a little more frequently. But for right now, there's a few things we can do from here, and I can still get on a plane strategically. So we can tap our network. I know a lot of folks that are based out here that would love to get into a project, and they're very familiar with tech. They're ready for that. I know how to do a spreadsheet. So things like underwriting analysis, those are things that I can already help with. Getting on a plane to do strategic steps such as like due diligence, like those are things that you can do, but they're finite periods of time. Whereas if it's your deal, you're going to be out there. You're going to be out there a lot. And even if you have a property manager relationship, which you will, if it's a large property. So that's why we went towards co-sponsorship. It has been such a critical, positive decision for us. I will say that I would love for us to do our own deals. It'll come when our boys are older. It'll probably come when Jennifer is also not working a full-time job. It just takes, I'm going to need her support fully and in terms of physical time and coverage because the workload is going to be so much more significant. But right now, I think a lot of people, just a quick comment on that too, Ruben. I talk to a lot of people who are looking for advice as to how and when they should become the lead GP. And what I tell them is, are you sure that you want are you sure you want to forego the potential wins that you could get by doing other parts of partnership as opposed to the whole enchilada? Because it's so easy to get attracted by the financial outcomes when you're the owner operator and you are just the lead GP. I get it. It looks very attractive. But what I would rather do is lean on the partnership and learn from all these other really smart people, particularly early on. Like particularly early on, wouldn't you want to learn alongside people who've been doing this for longer than you have? Like that's just a wonderful thing. If you dive in as a first-hand person to do it, and you're the lead GP, you better have some mentors around you because you're going to need them. So anyways, I won't go on the soapbox with that one, but it's been such a wonderful, helpful decision and business model for us. And I hope that other people that are evaluating the decisions would consider it too.
That's great content. That's a great answer. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I definitely want to touch base with you in the future. So hopefully we'll stay in touch. Are you going to any conferences in 2020? Are you bringing your wife?
Yeah. So she's going to come on a couple of them, I believe. So the ones I'm hitting up in their first part of next year, going to be going to the Intelligent Investors Conference in Los Angeles. I think Logan Freeman talked me into that one, and I was like, okay, this looks pretty cool. A lot of great people going to that one. Definitely going to the Best Ever Conference. Joe Fairless.
I'll be
Are
there.
you going to that one?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I went to school in Boulder, so I actually know Keystone really, really well. I haven't hurt myself on the slopes out there in a long time. So doing the Dealmaker Live conference probably with Michael Blanc. Went there last year, earlier this year rather. It was really fun. Probably a couple more, but I hadn't actually bought tickets yet. So
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to see if I'd be able to run into you. I want to maybe get a selfie. Definitely, I'll be at Best Ever Conference, and I will be hitting the slopes. So,
are you? Okay.
Yeah, hitting the slopes for sure. So I've been a snowboarder since 1986, and that's my thing, dude. So I love that stuff.
That's awesome. Okay, we will go fall down the mountain together.
All right, cool. All right, man. Well, with that, we'll sign off. Thank you again for coming on the show. I should be releasing this sometime in mid-January, probably. And
okay.
It's a pleasure to have you, man. Thank you so much for your time and all of your information and content that you shared. You've been awesome.
I appreciate the invite, Ruben. It's been a blast.
You bet. Congrats one more time on leaving corporate America, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Take care.
I'm an introvert by default, Ruben.